Okay, so we are now recording. You should see a little thing on the top left of your screen saying that it's recording. And this is the Wednesday, February 24th, 2021 Cemetery Commissioners meeting, starting at approximately 6 o'clock. We're at 6:04, 6:03.
Okay.
We're going to start this meeting. Actually, I have usually the agenda on the agenda as the review, then improve the minutes, but I think we should start with number 2, which is welcoming the new members, which is two-thirds of the whole committee right now. So you guys know each other, right? Susan, you know Steve. Steve, you
I know who Steve is. I don't know if Steve knows me.
I do.
So we're going to do roll call. We have to do because it's online.
When we do votes, we'll do a roll call vote.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's a lot easier with 3 of us. I found the way to do it with big groups like Franklin County Fire Chiefs, where you got 20 people on, is just to anyone opposed, anyone abstaining. If not, I'm assuming everyone is voting yes. It makes it a lot easier. So.
Oh yeah.
But with 3 of us, we can do a roll call vote, easy enough. And sometimes we do get people come in. Janice won't be on tonight because she's got a historical committee meeting right now, but sometimes there's a few other people that drop in, Leslie Lechonic and
Mary Jo
Maffei. Yeah. So, all right. So welcome everyone. Thank you very much for volunteering to be part of this committee and getting appointed, because it's pretty hard to do anything with a committee of 1.
I'll say.
Janice did send out the minutes to everyone. I know you weren't here, so this is going to be kind of an awkward one where technically you can't really vote yes or no because you weren't really. Also, Susan, you were at the last meeting, so you did attend, not as a member, but you were there.
I was as a visitor. Can I still vote?
Now you can vote because but you were there, you witnessed what was going on. So I think this is one that we'll have to do where you can make the motion to accept the minutes, or even Steve can. You can't
I can make the motion. I just have
to make the motion. Susan can second it, and we'll talk about it, and then we can vote.
Okay.
So Steve is making the motion to accept the minutes as emailed.
I second.
Okay. Discussion on the minutes. Is there, I know Susan, you were there. Was there any omissions, errors, things that need?
I didn't see any spelling issues or anything.
Yeah, that's good.
No, it looks fine to me.
All right. And I think I looked it over and everything looks good. So we will do a roll call vote then. Steve, I guess you have to abstain.
I'll abstain, yes.
Yeah, but we'll do it official. Susan?
Dillinger, aye.
And I will vote aye also. So the minutes for the January 13th, 2021 meeting has been approved. That was wrong in the agenda. It's 2021, January 13th, 2021 meeting. Okay. So then I figured we'd just have a general discussion about what the Cemetery Commission does, because lots of times people don't really know. Now that you're on the committee, it's probably good to know just what it is that we do. I would have liked to pull up a job description, but I don't know if there is one for it. But generally, the Cemetery Committee oversees the operation entirely of the 3 town-owned cemeteries, which is West Cemetery, which also now includes what some people refer to as in the descriptions, the Luther Henry, or it's been referred to as the Stetson Cemetery, which is immediately west of West Cemetery. It's that section on the right-hand side as you drive in the main driveway. It's the Pratt Corner Road Cemetery and the one on Locks Pond Road, which again, the name is kind of been thrown around. Is it the Locks Pond Road Cemetery? Is it Locks Village Cemetery? I think it's been referred to in some historic documents as the Locks Village Cemetery. So we oversee everything that goes on with that, from, hiring the groundskeepers, making sure that the equipment is maintained and everything's working with them. It's doing the timesheets and payroll bills. Hold on just 1 second, because I have somebody at the front door. I'll be right back.
Are you making supper, Steve?
Yes.
Good for you.
Yeah, the 6 o'clock meetings, they pop up quick.
Yeah. Yep.
At least the Shutesbury meetings are generally short. The
Yes.
regional school committee meetings can get long.
Oh, I bet. I bet that those meetings are not pleasant.
Last night was because we got to talk about putting elementary kids back in the school.
Aha.
Oh, yes. All right. Getting back to the general job. So we oversee everything like that. We oversee the sales, set prices, do the sales. Usually I have in the past have gone out whenever there's going to be a burial, mark out the correct location for the burial for whoever the excavator is that's digging it. Work with the monument companies when they want to put headstones out, making sure they're put in the right place. Basically just everything involved in running the cemetery, from making up the policies and prices and all that, overseeing the sales, collecting the money, everything. So that's what we do.
Wow.
And it is something, there were a couple people that were interested in the cemetery committee and came to a number of the meetings, and when asked if they wanted to join, because they seemed really interested, they said, well, I'm really interested in this, but it seemed like you do a lot more than I thought you did, so I don't really have the time. Like, oh, good, thanks. But they still drop in on meetings and give opinions sometimes, which is good. Nice to get other people's view on things, but sometimes it's, there's not a lot happening, and then other times there's a lot going on. I mean, I get a lot of calls. I'm on because Janice was on for a shorter period of time, and Ray also, and doing different aspects. I ended up being, as the chair, ended up forwarding or fielding a lot of the phone calls on a pretty good first name basis with a lot of the funeral homes around here, all monument companies and all that. And then, field a lot of calls just on questions about cemeteries. Are there plots available? What's available? What are the prices? What's the whole thing with the green burial? That has brought in more phone calls from out of our area than I had ever anticipated.
Wow.
I've fielded calls from the eastern part of the state, even places out of state.
Wow.
Simply because we are, at one point when we first did it, we were only one of 13 cemeteries in the state of Massachusetts that was registered or listed as having natural or green burials.
Wow.
Yeah. I never knew it was going to be so involved when we did it. So, but generally there's, like I said, we do all aspects of everything that goes on. We field complaints. We sometimes field, appreciation calls, in support. We deal with all the maintenance and issues with personnel and all that other stuff. And I will say right now, we've got 3 good groundskeepers that I haven't had a lot of problems with. The one newer guy who was hired last year, basically just to do the 2 small cemeteries, I'd like to get him more active than what he's been, but it took a lot off Susan and Mike to be able to for them to focus on the main cemetery and not worry about the other ones. And he's there to help them out with other things too. So things have gone really good. So I guess, do either of you have questions?
Do the groundskeepers put in a certain number of hours a week or a month, or how does that work for them?
It's as needed. So like the first part of the year, till things get growing, there's not a lot to do. What they've planned for this year, and like they did at the end of last year, is it's a good time before the grass starts growing to get out there and cut back some of the brush that's grown over in the summertime or over the winter. Some of it has been over the number of years, because we did have an issue with groundskeepers for a couple years trying to find somebody that wanted to work as well as be employed. We had a couple of people that loved being employed but didn't want to work and didn't show up. When they did show up, they were putting down hours, but they weren't doing anything. So after years, Mother Nature never stops growing. As much as some people are appalled when we cut brush and cut trees, it's like rust. It never sleeps. It just keeps on growing. And there are some places where, the trees have encroached the original border by several feet, be it small brush or larger if you let it go. So, they do that more in the spring. And then there's a period in the springtime when the grass starts growing, especially getting up to Memorial Day and a little bit past that, it grows like crazy. So they put in a lot of time. It's usually Memorial Day is when you want it looking the best and everything's growing the fastest. So they really, hit it hard at that time. Then as summer comes along and we get less rain and the growing season slows down a little bit, it's, a few hours a week or whatever. And then, it's just commensurate to what the time of the year is. And this time of the year, they do absolutely nothing. So, but yeah, there are times where they're putting in a good number of hours a week. And you wouldn't realize it unless you've actually done it, but just the West Cemetery alone, doing the weed whacking, if it's one person, just the back section, never mind the front, just the back section can take up to 6 hours just doing weed whacking to do it right. Yeah, there's a lot involved. You start looking at hundreds of stones, and they all have to be weed whacked around. That's a lot of weed whacking, and you want to do it such that you don't damage the stones. Yeah,
very important.
There is some care that has to go into it. So, yeah, there are times where they're putting in a lot of hours. Yeah, and other times not. But they've got it down pretty good, and we have now 2 mowers that they can use. So when it's on the growing season, they can both get on the riding mowers and really hammer that part down pretty quick, and then it's just the weed whacking and fine detail stuff. But I pretty much leave it up to them as to what they feel needs to be done. And since Susan and Mike have been doing it, I've never had to go and say, hey, do you think you can show up and do some mowing? Because they're on it. They really take pride in what it looks like.
Oh, good.
And, yeah, that's the reason Susan got involved, because she got tired of walking through the cemetery every day and having it look like it was. So I said, well, have I got a job for you? And it just worked out well that they took it on, and they've been doing good with it. So.
Oh, good. Thanks.
Yeah, no problem. Any other questions?
So who was in charge of that little piece of cemetery beside the West Cemetery until now?
Well, the town has owned it since I saw something on there, 50 or 60, something like that. Before that, it was a private cemetery, and it was deeded over to the town. I think on Janice's descriptions, it gives a date, I think it was in the 1960s that it was deeded over to the town. So since then, we've taken care of it. There are actually still lots available for sale in there.
Oh my!
Yeah.
Because I've always threatened to take my weed whack with a blade on it, cut all those little pines down.
Oh, believe me, I'd love to see all those come down. And since we took some of the bigger trees out, or they've come crashing down, those little pines are just going crazy. So, yeah, that's another thing I'd like to see done this year is get all that stuff cleaned up, all that brushing.
That wouldn't take very long with a blade. Where doing it by hand, it would take forever, but you could just zip through this so fast.
Yeah, and last year we did buy a dedicated brush cutter, Husqvarna brush cutter for doing all that stuff. So, I mean, even the road going up was getting overgrown with all that small brush.
They did a nice job on knocking that back, but of course now it's all growing again.
Yeah, it's going to be one of those things you got to hit it for a couple of years before it slows down. So, yeah, just another one of those projects. All right. I think there's going to be things come up as we go along. Just to sit down and say, what's all the stuff that we do? You know, that's pretty good description, but there's always things that come up. And there's always questions, and you know. And we actually also, the cemetery owns the little, as you're going down Leverett Road on the right-hand side, as you're just coming onto the cemetery, there's a little crypt there. Still, we own and maintain that also. And last year for one of the projects, we had that rebuilt and a lock put on it. So we sent it down to Williamsburg Blacksmith, and they rebuilt the door and actually made a lock for it so we can now lock it, which it never was able to be, and people were throwing junk and trash and stuff in there. So now that's secured, so that's made that a lot better. Now I'd like to just paint it, make it look a little bit more presentable, but yeah, we also take care of that. So
do we ever use that as a crypt?
No, not anymore. It's more just a historical thing now.
That was to keep bodies when the ground was too frozen to.
Right. Yeah. And so that was the way they did the cold storage back then until the ground thawed out enough. Yep. Yeah, and one other thing that I do, and as I leave or transition out or something, whoever is left might end up having to do, or we might have to find somebody else to do it. I do, when we're doing cremational burials, I also dig those myself. So we don't hire those out to anybody. For the most part, Clark's does all the other excavation except for in the green burials or natural burial areas, and Grassroots out of Leverett does that. Just because Clark's did not want to have anything to do with it.
Really?
Yeah. Dennis was like, nope, sorry, don't want anything to do with that. Find somebody else.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. It's not so much early on, but as it starts getting, more populated, if you will,
it's going to be tricky.
It's trickier, yeah, especially if you misjudge something or mismeasure something.
You don't want to dig
something. It can be less than pleasant.
Yep.
He just doesn't want anything to do with that. So
understandable.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else anybody has right at the moment? As you come up with questions, feel free to ask. I'll see if I can answer. So next on the agenda is the annual report. And I don't know if you followed the email thread back and forth. Janice wrote a great annual report to go into the town report. And the only thing I realized, and I wrote her back and saying, this is a hard thing to do. I have trouble doing it when I'm doing the fire department reports, or when I do them, is that if you don't do it right in January, you think of all the projects we did, and, and she included the follow-up of the end of the restoration, all that. And that ended up going into, the workshop was in October or November. So, it was well past the end of the year. So I said, it's hard, I can go either way. I can see including it, and I can see not, because if we had written it in July or August, none of that work would have happened. So I guess as of just a little while ago, she did contact Linda, and she is then going to rewrite the annual report because she suggested that we don't include that. So
she did. She sent it to us, draft 5.
Oh, I haven't.
Right. Just a little while ago, Walter. Just a little while. Maybe like 5:30, 20.
Yeah, that was late this afternoon. I haven't read it yet, but I saw that it showed up.
Yeah.
Okay. I haven't checked my email. Let me just see.
Yep, I was on, and so I saw.
Yeah, there we go. New revised annual report for Cemetery Commission meeting February 24th. Okay. Let me open that up and download it. And I'm actually going to print it out so I have it in front of me. And Steve, you haven't had a chance to read it?
Not the revised one, but the other one,
Okay.
yes. Yeah.
Okay. Let me just see what.
It looks fine. She just cut everything out that was after July. I mean, you know.
Yeah,
what I mean?
yeah, he actually wrote it.
July on.
The last thing is we are hoping for better conditions in FY21 so that we can work with volunteers on gravestone cleaning and repair. So, you know, she projected that well.
Yep.
I'll just take a quick look at it and then, you know, then we can vote on that. So she'll feel better if it's voted on, and so she can turn it in. Mm. Yeah, I think it looks good. All right, so we'll accept the motion to accept the Shutesbury Cemetery Commissioner's annual report for January 1st, 2019 to June 30th, 2020. Labeled draft 4 at this point.
5. I think it's
I don't know. Well, this one's printed on the top, draft 4, but maybe it is draft 5.
Mine came out with a red 5.
Mine came out with a red draft 4. Let's see. Maybe I got a different one.
No, maybe I'm wrong about it.
Let's see.
I have a
think
single
wrong about it
screen.
being 5. I don't know why I thought it was a red. I swear I saw red. But those are the pictures at the bottom of the last version.
Yeah.
So it is 4. Yes, that is it.
Yeah. Okay.
Sorry.
No problem. Always good to make sure. I make mistakes all the time. So, all right. So, labeled draft 4. Somebody want to make a motion for that?
I move that we accept this and report.
Okay.
I will second that.
All right. Very good. So we'll do a roll call vote. So, Susan?
Aye.
Steve?
Aye.
And I vote aye also. Very good. So I will let Janice know that we approved it as written, and she can include it or send it to Linda for inclusion in the town report. Okay, so next I had the final report of the gravestone restoration work, just that I had sent out, that she'd included. Did I send that out to you or not? I may not have.
I think Janice sent me something.
Okay.
Did you
Yeah,
get something?
I did send her an electronic version. Let's see if I sent it to you guys too.
Is that the one with pictures?
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of pictures and stuff at the end. It was several pages long.
Hmm.
Let's see. I did send it. No, I sent it to Janice. That was it. Oh, no. Let's see. Which one has the... Well, I guess I did. I did not send it to you guys. Let's see if she did. This annual report.
Yeah, I got that thing, the email from you that had 3 attachments, but that's not one of them.
Okay. Yeah. So I apologize for that. I was probably going to send that out to you guys later. It's not anything we have to, vote on. It was the final report from Tamara, who did all the gravestone restoration, the full restoration of 18 headstones, who did excellent work. You know, her and her husband did reset them all, cleaned them, remortared them, leveled them all up. And in her report, not only does it say, you know, what they did, but then it gives a report of each stone, the condition it was found in, what they did to repair it, pictures before and afterwards. And I will, if you want, right after this meeting, or maybe I can do it now as we talk, I'll email that out to you guys just so you have it. And I apologize for not doing that previous, but
Is this the document that's like 30 pages long?
yes. Yeah.
Okay, I do have it from somebody,
Okay.
but I
Maybe.
decided I was not going to print it off.
Oh no, yeah, it's pretty long.
Pretty thorough. Wow.
Yes. Just trying to see where I saved it. Let me just go back to the email and I'll just forward. Oh, come on. All right, now I'm having trouble finding where I sent it out. Huh. Well, I'll tell you what else. Yeah, oh well. I can't. When you look for something right away, you can't find it. But
Oh, yeah.
and we'll get that out to you guys right after this meeting and send it to you so you can look at it anyways. But like I said, it was what she was required to do. It was a pretty extensive report. We can just pass over it for now, but I'll get that out to you guys afterwards. Again, I apologize. Some other things that she sent were the cemetery description and language for the signs. I think that's also just for you guys to coming on new, see some of the stuff that we've been doing. She had written a description of all the different cemeteries so we can put it on the website. We realized though there is a website page for the cemetery commissioners and there's really not much on it. So one of the things we were looking at doing is to get as more information on there, get the policies, all the cemetery policies, including I think the natural burial ones are up there, but not the rest of the policies that we rewrote this year. Descriptions of the cemeteries, pricing, everything else we want to get out there. So those were the descriptions that she had written up for each one. I think they're as accurate as I can tell. So I have been working a little bit with Gail on the Gail Fleischesser on the, I know I'm not saying her name right, but she's on the web committee. So we've been kind of fine tuning some of the stuff on the fire department emergency management pages. So I'll see if I can start working with her on the cemetery stuff and get things listed up there.
How does that work? In terms of getting stuff on the website, do you have to go through the committee for them to put it up?
Well, I have access to at least the fire department and emergency management, and I think the cemetery. page. I'm not sure, but I'm not a web designer. I don't, I've been able to get some stuff on there, but it's always a struggle for me. How do I do this?
Oh, yeah.
At one time when they first set it up, I went through and, I learned how to put pictures on there and headers and move things around. And, it's one of those things, if you don't keep doing it, you'll lose it. So
Absolutely. You have to do it on a regular basis or you forget.
yeah, it's a lot easier sometimes to just say, this is what I want to put on there. Can you do it for me?
Yeah. And they will, huh?
Yeah. The web committee is good about doing that or helping you do it. So, yeah, it works out well. So as we go along here in your excursion on the cemetery commission, if there's things you think that should be up there, we should look at it and do that. So, there's language for signs. We realized that the signs that were up there really didn't pertain to the cemeteries now, because we actually changed some of the policies. One of the policies that was set back in, I don't know if it was the late 80s, early 90s or something like that. It might have been a little bit later, I'm not sure, is that they wanted, when somebody bought a plot, they were requiring them to put in 4 corner markers. And, that kind of helps identify where the plot is. And when people were buying 8 plot lots, that wasn't too bad. But then, we sell up to single lots. And when people started putting single lots or small double lots in, you just got this mosaic of cornerstones, which not only was visually distracting, it certainly made the groundskeeper's job that much harder, more things to contend with. So we really decided, something, we don't need to do that anymore, because we're going to have to go out and mark where they are anyways. So, and most cemeteries don't do that. So we did away with that. And because the natural burial section does not require cement vaults, the sign said, we require cement vaults. And a few different things, we just decided to change the signs and make them a little more simple, and then refer them to, other things on the town website, rather than try to list it all on the sign. Every time you change it, got to change the sign. It's a lot easier to change policies on a website than it is having signs printed up each time. So,
yeah.
And that was something that originally Ray was going to have done. He was working on that, and then he resigned, and then Janice was going to pick it up, and she's been too busy, and I've been a little busy. So it's one of those projects that hasn't gotten done yet. But just so you can, include, so where we are with some of the things we've been doing, we included the language for the signs just on the agenda, just to talk about it, and so you guys can understand what that is and all about.
So the language on the signs is just basically telling people about behavior in the cemetery.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, it's hours. We never had hours, but we decided to set some hours, at least so we can say, you can't do this. We actually have had people go up there and camping up back at night. Some people had campfires out there in the road, setting up tents and all that. We've had people, just go out there partying, drinking. And if you don't have something saying, it's closed and you're trespassing after this time, it's kind of hard to enforce anything.
Yeah.
So now it was like we set some hours, set some prohibited things. And the one thing was that people should know as they're going in there is, you can plant flowers and plants, but not bushes and trees, because they just, people have done that in the past, and then the family, either they all pass away or they move out of the area. And then this thing, which was a nice little adorable plant, is now, you can't even tell that there's headstones there. Some of them have just overgrown everything, and we end up having to cut it all back. So we decided to say, we have the authority to either trim or remove as we feel necessary, and we just don't put them in anymore, because it's nice now, but years down the road, it's nothing but a maintenance nightmare. So little things like that. So basically, basic expected behavior and, you know, respect of the people that are there and the families, and respect of the grounds and things like that. So it's tried to keep it fairly simple, because, you know, if you have too many things, if you list 25 things, nobody's going to read the whole thing anyway either.
Right.
So short and sweet and to the point. And if you need more than that, refer to the website. Okay. I pictured this meeting as more just of a kind of get your feet wet, you know, discuss what we've been doing type meeting, and not really moving forward any projects at this point. One thing that isn't on there that was kind of mentioned in the annual report is a project that we started and is going to have to continue this spring, is more like a surveying of the cemetery. Many years ago, Bill Randall worked with FERCog to design this beautiful map of the cemetery, where everything is laid out in 18 by 18 foot plots with 9-foot roads in between them, and everything just beautiful. The problem is reality doesn't match the maps. Some places where there's supposed to be 36 feet of plots, there's 40 something, and the roads, instead of being 11 feet or 9 feet wide, are 11 feet wide, and things get really out of whack. And then we did discover in having him, and then people, you know, driving where they think the road should be, and enough people do that. Well, the road is here. Well, no, the road isn't really there. It's over here. And that led to sometimes people measuring out and people being buried in not exactly where they were supposed to be.
Oh my.
Yeah, which tends to be a little bit of a problem, and nothing you can go back and fix. So there was this past summer, there was some days I walked out of there trying to measure things out with, you know, nothing but a splitting headache, going, God, I hope I got it right. So we decided to have somebody that does, a friend of mine that, well, we had him do it, but a friend of mine that does, he is a surveyor and commercial surveyor, and he came out and did just kind of a quick thing to say, all right, these are the road where the roads are, and versus this baseline that goes across it, all the measurements are taken off of. And when you put that over what the map is, they were quite off. And at first it looks like all the roads are not where they're supposed to be, but if you really look at it and say, okay, if we turn this and line this up, what it ends up being is the baseline, which everything has been measured off of for years, is not actually perpendicular to the road. So, you know, that kind of takes the thing of where you're trying to square everything up and make everything nice and neat. The thing that you're measuring off is not square. Which I found out was, okay, so I'm not going nuts. There is really something wrong. So the next point that we were going to do was to have him, now that we identified what the problem was, is trying to, how do we fix it the best we can? And basically we can't change what's there. We have to kind of readjust the maps or the measurements on the map. So the next thing that needs to be done is he's going to come out in the spring, and they're going to put pins in like every 50 feet in line where the roads are, not where they're supposed to be, where they are. And that gives us at least a base point to start measuring things off of. And the way I see it is we can't really change the baseline now because everything's been measured off of it. We'll just have to change the measurements that are written on the map and kind of go from there. So that one's still a work in progress. That was one that it's baffling of the mind to see just how far off things were. I mean, we're talking, if you went by what they surveyed, the roads are up to like 9-10 feet out of place.
Oh
and
my.
I know I was running into the fact that I was, you know, in a space that's only supposed to be 36 feet wide. It's well over 40, 41 feet, the way the graves are located. And there were some that were sold in a plot that makes it halfway across one of the roadways. So we eventually are going to have to close one of the roadways because it actually goes over the plot that was sold.
Whoa.
So yeah, it was all those things that I just like, we kind of inherited over past years. And I can see sometimes if things were done in, you know, late fall, early spring with snow on the ground and all that, you know, do you get accurate measurements or not? You know, who was actually doing the measurement? What were they using to measure? Was it an actual tape or was it, you know, a 10-foot tape that's laid on the ground, you know, 12 times? Or was it, my foot's about 12 inches long and I'll walk it out, you know, don't really know. But unfortunately, it's up to us to make sure that it's kind of right now. And my feeling was, when I pass this on to somebody, I'd like to pass it on. I don't want to pass on the mess. I want to pass on some kind of solution to the mess. So that was what triggered that project. So that's one that'll still pick up in the spring. So
Okay.
we'll get to talk about that one again.
Yeah, spring's not that far away.
I hope not. All right. So do you guys have anything? I just put down, you know, the classic items not anticipated 48 hours prior to the meeting. That kind of leaves it open to anything. So anything you guys want to bring up, questions, concerns, as long as you don't say, this isn't what I want to do, I want to quit, I won't hear that. Other than that, anything, I'm open for discussion. No? All right. Steve says no.
I have a question, but
Okay.
maybe not a good question to ask today because we don't want to ramble on it, but have you ever considered closing the cemetery to outsiders?
Yeah, we never really did because there wasn't much of a draw. The only thing is, since we opened up for the green burials, we have had, that's the only time we've gotten a real big call of people. But I've kind of dissuaded some of them. And when we started this, we were on our old pricing too. And, you know, we increased the pricing significantly and we're still less than other cemeteries around. But, you know, it was kind of hard to say, you know, okay, we're charging $100 a plot for people, residents, and now we're going to go up to 350. You know, it was more than 300% increase. And it's more for non-residents. That non-resident went from 250 to 550 per plot, so that a little more than doubled. That kind of quelled a little bit of it. I think it was just more new, so everybody was inquiring. But you know, really, when people, you know, you start talking to us, like, do you realize where Shutesbury is? You know, we're about 100 miles from where you live now. Do you really want your family driving that far to come out here? And they're like, yeah, that is a little far. So we haven't considered it, but it's always an option. We have had people that used to live in town or have family that lived in town that wanted to come back. Matter of fact, it was last year, the year before, members of the Spear family, which is a pretty well-known name in the town of Shutesbury, that were living out, I'm trying to think where they were, down southwest. They came and bought there was two 4-plot lots, and they bought it right almost adjacent to their great-grandfather.
Oh, that's great.
And they were really happy about that. And unfortunately, they had the opportunity to utilize those only a couple months later.
Oh, geez.
So it was nice that they were able to get a plot, you know, in the town that their ancestry grew up in, and be able to be buried next to their grandfather or great-grandfather. So.
Yeah. No, I can see people with connections to Shutesbury.
Yeah.
You know, it's just, so as long as it's not a problem.
Then it hasn't been, and you know, we still have a number of lots available. Even in the green barrows, we set aside, I think it's 226, something like that, lots or plots specifically for green or natural burials. I like to call them natural burials. So we haven't had a big run on those yet. There's still a lot left in that section. And it's always up to us to say if we see a big run on it and we feel that it's getting out of hand, we can always, just make a motion and vote to shut it down to outsiders or people that do not have ties to the town. We have full prerogative on basically what we do with the cemeteries. Yeah.
Oh, that's good.
I mean, within state legal laws and stuff like that. But other than that, we don't really have to go to town meeting to vote for anything unless we're going for a capital expense. And part of what we do, be able to fund some of those, we do get a small amount for operating out of the town's budget. But when we sell lots, that goes in, the money that we take from that goes into a expendable trust fund. And from that, we can do, larger things like the last mower that we bought that out of the expendable trust fund. And that was a big reason why we increased the prices, because they were still set at prices from, 1970s or something like that. And, price of everything was going up, and it got to be when we were starting to get into looking at buying more newer, expensive equipment that we were significantly impacting our expendable trust fund. So that was part of the reason that we increased that. So we'd have the ability, if we need to be able to do that without having to go to the town for, town meeting for that.
Yeah.
So it just makes it a little bit easier, especially when it's a timely purchase.
Sure.
And that's what it was. This mower came up that it was like the one that we had, which worked out really well. It's a little bit bigger, a little bit wider, but it was all-wheel drive. And a woman had bought it for her husband, and he used it one season and said, "No, this isn't really what I wanted. I really wanted one of those zero-turn mowers." So the dealership, took it in trade, and then they called me and said, "Hey, are you still looking for one of these?" I said, "Yeah." And we got, really a screaming deal on what it is as compared to buying it new. And it came, it was like brand new. They went through it before they gave it, sold it to us, and it's been a great asset to the cemetery. So, but that was one of those things, if you had to wait for town meeting, it'd be gone.
Get it. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
It does give us a little bit of flexibility.
That's useful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else? All right. Well, our next thing on the agenda, or last thing on the agenda, is set a date for the next meeting. Sometimes, like I said, in the wintertime when not a lot's going on, we've been meeting, every other month or so. When there's things going on, we have typically met once a month. It's up to you guys what you feel. If you want to do another one in March, or if you want to wait more towards April, I'm open for either. In some ways, it might be nice to do the March one, just before we head into the growing season and all that. It could probably be a relatively short meeting, but I'll leave it up to you guys what you think. Or I'll leave it for your input. How's that?
Doesn't make a difference to me.
If we need to do a quick March one, that's fine with me.
Okay. Do Wednesday nights work out for you or not? All right. Now, is there a better Wednesday? Is like the second Wednesday or the third Wednesday better for you? Either of you?
I can't do the second Wednesday because COA meets that night.
Okay, so third Wednesday is better.
Mhm.
Okay, that's what we used to do, was the third Wednesday, but sometimes it get moved around because of things. We have the ability to move them around as long as we have enough time to post it within the open meeting laws. So let's look at the third Wednesday of next month would be it's March 17th, St. Patrick's Day. You guys have a problem with meeting on that, or would you rather do the 24th?
Nope. I get my second vaccination on the 17th of March.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So 17th, good for you, Steve? 6 o'clock work okay for everyone?
Yep.
Okay, so we'll make the next meeting Wednesday, March 17th at 6 p.m. Wear your green.
Yeah.
All right, very good. Motion to adjourn.
So move.
Steve, second.
Second that.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Millinger, aye.
Sullivan, aye.
Tibbetts, aye. Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
You too.
Thanks.
I gotta go to this one to stop the recording. Well,